What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Aftermath podcast. I am your host, Christopher Tenpenny, joined by my co-host today. Not CJ. CJ had another thing, but I've got Keegan Russell here in the house. Keegan, how are you doing, my man?
I mean, I got some big shoes to fill with Chris being out. So hopefully, I can deliver the same enthusiasm he brings and the excitement for Chiefs Kingdom that you guys are used to getting with him.
Right, he's kind of the soul of this whole program, so we are going to miss CJ today, but it's going to be all right. We're going to do our best. That's all we can ask for. But before we get too much into this, first, if you guys are listening to this on the KC spot, excuse me, the KC Sports Authority podcast or on our Aftermath Spotify, please go check out KC Sports Authority on YouTube. Make sure to like them. Check out their other content. They got a lot of good stuff headlined over there by Keegan, all the good KU stuff, and maybe Keegan, you got some future stuff coming as well, or
That's the hope. We're gonna start diversifying our content over the next few months and get into some more topics.
okay, oh great, that's some little gambling, maybe some Mizzou.
Yeah, I need to pick up sports betting a little bit more. I know we're gonna do some Royals off season coming up, and then Spencer and I we're gonna start diving into the NBA probably over this weekend with first week coming up. So basketball season's here. So as much as we're gonna talk football, basketball's coming too.
There we go, a lot of good stuff. But on the Chiefs end, we got the Chargers this week. That's what most of this episode is going to be about, looking ahead at the Chargers and what the expectations are. But let's start with the big news, all right? And I don't even I feel like big is over exaggerating, but just because it's a known name, Mecole Hardman is back in Kansas City. Thoughts?
I think if you would have asked me 2 weeks ago when this was a possibility, my thought was, doesn't do anything for me. I think even yesterday when we were talking about this, I was still on the, eh. I think all this really does is it raises the floor. I don't think it does anything to the ceiling. I'm happy to have him back. I mean, he's familiar with the offense, even though him and Mahomes never really got on the same page. I bet he has way more trust in him than he does a couple other receivers on this team. So I don't think it can hurt anything.
Yeah, definitely couldn't hurt. They didn't give anything away. For those of you that don't know, all the Chiefs traded away was a 2025 sixth rounder, and they got Mecole and the Jets 2025 seventh rounder. So they literally gave up nothing to bring him on. He's getting paid nothing.
Yeah.
I compared it to baseball, like trading for a seventh inning reliever. Like it's a guy that may up your team a little bit. That's probably going to get some big outs for you the postseason. But like, is he really the reason you're gonna go the whole way? No. Like it's nice to have a known face. He may help us out
Yeah,
early
he's
on, but
definitely not the big wide receiver swing we were hoping to see. And I know we'll get into trade deadline next week and talk about a couple other guys. But I mean, he's a guy that he's when healthy, he's still incredibly quick, high end athlete. I think he immediately is the best athlete in the receiver room, with Rashee Rice and of course Kadarius Toney when he's healthy. Um, I think if anything, this really raises more of a concern for the current wide receiver room that we had to bring Mecole back. Like to me, that there's no more trust in Sky Moore, and I know we can get into who's going to get their playing time taken away from him to get Mecole in the field, and we'll have to really watch games to find out. But to me, this was a Mecole can be trusted in the return game. We haven't really had that this season at all. Um, Maybe he's better in the gadget plays than Toney, and it gives us another speed burner going down the field. But I mean, in reality, now we have 5 receivers on the team that are 5'10", 180 pounds. We don't have that possession receiver still. So that part I'm disappointed. But again, I don't think it really hurts anything. Um, Maybe him coming back without a couple of those other guys ahead of him, like in years previous, that maybe he's just got a new opportunity to showcase his skill set.
yeah, I mean it's funny where we've come. Last year, it was everyone yelling at Mecole for not being productive during his time here, always being injured, and now half the fan base is excited to have him back. It's like it's Mecole Hardman. Like he's gonna make a few plays, he's gonna take a few jet sweeps. He's probably gonna help a little bit, but like at the end of the day, for me, it comes down to getting Rashee Rice going, getting
Yeah.
MBS, a couple more big plays downfield, Kadarius Toney healthy. Those things are still more important to the wide receiver success long term this season.
I am curious what'll happen as far as play calling and what kind of bunches of receivers we'll see out there. Like who's Mecole going in there with? Maybe because of that speed threat, it changes how the safeties have to play. We haven't seen a lot of too high safeties this year against the Chiefs because there's been no attacking down the field. So maybe putting Mecole out there and you can spread the field a little bit more. Now the defense has to at least think about his speed, which the defense hasn't had to do this year because Mecole couldn't get us any playing time at all up in New York, even when he was healthy. So I don't know if that's more of a bad thing or if it's just he didn't fit in with Rodgers. Then when Rodgers went down, there was no point. But, maybe that speed will kind of open things up and they can move Rashee Rice around a little bit, play him more as an X receiver and send him on the outside and rotate some of these guys around. Because I think, if anything, his speed you have to at least think about. Even if they're not game planning for Mecole, it's still a lot of speed when he's healthy.
For sure. That whole jump throw pass against the Titans, 3 years ago has been going around. Incredible play by Mahomes, but even more incredible play with the acceleration, Mecole. So if he still got that, then yeah, definitely.
Yeah, if he can burn guys down the field like he has in the past, which we have not had on this current roster, then look out for Mahomes chucking 40, 50-yard bombs again. And that'll be exciting because that's supposed to be MVS, but he can't get past the first guy, let alone the second guy. But Mecole's got that speed that he could do it.
Right, and also Mahomes has looked a little off throwing the deep ball as well, so maybe having a guy he trusts, maybe gives a little – I don't know. That's always been a thing with Mahomes. We talk about the big arm, and it's like sometimes his down-the-field accuracy isn't always as great as we want it to be. But last thing on Mecole real quick, do you think he plays this week? And if he does, what's his impact?
Well, we didn't get the confirmation out of the press conference today, but it does sound like everything's lining up to be that way. He's talked about his injury issues. It doesn't really sound like he's got the injury problems right now. Dave Tobe mentioned that if he is active, he'll probably be you'll probably see him in the return game in some capacity. So that leads me to believe they plan on him being active. I think the question is, what is the shuffling around of the roster? We haven't seen the corresponding move yet, and I think it's pretty obvious. It's Washington was elevated the last 2 weeks from the practice squad. But I think I might be wrong. This might be the week that we have to make a decision on Richie James coming off of IR or not. Does Justin Ross get bumped back down to the practice squad? What happens there? So I think that's the real question is, if he does play Saturday or Sunday, what's the corresponding move, and does that trickle down to any of the other receivers?
Right. Yeah, I think he's going to play too, but I don't expect anything from him on offense. I think it's all on the punt return. He may get like a jet sweep or something, and what he does with that, who knows? But
so what's your long-term rest of the season thoughts? Like, does he have an impact down the stretch, or is he just an extra body?
I think they try to give him like 3 touches a game early on. Some of those just because that was what was really working for him before he got hurt last year. Like that 49ers game, he didn't really have anything down the field. They were just doing those little touch passes or jet sweeps or whatnot. And I think that's what they're going to try to do. If he's still got it and those are working, I think you'll see those continue. If it's not really doing a lot early and you've got other guys you're trying to get involved with a little bit more talent and long-term plans with, then maybe it goes away. But early on, I expect 3 to 5 touches. Outside of this week, I expect like 3-ish touches a game.
What's sad is that 3 touches a game would be high up there with what the rest of the receivers are getting outside of Travis Kelce.
Right. No,
three touches might lead the team in touches that game.
But that's what they were trying to like. Tony had all those short catches a couple weeks ago. Sky Moore gets a jet sweep a game, even when he doesn't have a catch downfield. Like, so I think it's going to be similar to that. Short routes and again, I don't know how many times I've said jet sweeps in the last 3 minutes, but I'm going to keep on saying it.
That's his bread and butter.
But like, that's just kind of what I think they're going to force feed, and he's known to be pretty good at it in this offense, and the other guys haven't quite had the success in a small sample size. So I think if that allows him to take on that role and the other guys to maybe kind of work the middle of the field and actually run routes down the field, I think that in the zone has value. But again, having said all that, I'm not expecting a ton from him as the season progresses.
So is this more, again, for you, is this more of an indication that we don't trust Sky Moore and that we're going to see his play time diminish? Or is this, again, just more of the gadget and move Tony back out to focusing on running down the field?
I think it's a response to the Watson injury, really. I think everyone else is kind of, I don't know if like is the best way to say, but they have in their role. They lost a guy that knows the offense for unknown amount of weeks. They needed to plug it. He was ready, he was available cheap, and here he is. I don't know if it's a quite as big of a indictment on some of these other guys as we think at this current point. Now, if he comes out and Sky Moore runs 10 routes and Mecole runs 20, there's your answer, like
Yeah.
right there away. But I don't necessarily think we're at that point yet with Sky Moore. So, but let's get into the actual game Sunday. The 5-1 Chiefs taking on the 2-3. Almost said San Diego, Los Angeles Chargers. I'm gonna say that till I die.
It always sounds right.
It's
San
just
Diego Chargers just sounds right.
it just flows better. But Chargers already having their bye, coming off a Monday night loss to the Cowboys. That's kind of my favorite part of this whole match. This is a big matchup, especially with the records. Like the Chiefs can kind of put the division away in a sense this early. But like the Chiefs got a Thursday night game and had 10 days to prepare for this, while the Chargers have to travel on the road coming off a Monday night game. So like from a preparation standpoint, the Chiefs have no excuses here.
Yeah,
Like
they've had all the time to rest.
so having said that, I'm still terrified because terrified is an exaggeration, but like these games are always so damn close. Like they're always 3 points, overtime, last possession kind of ball games. Herbert last year with, broken ribs or lacerated ribs or whatever the hell happened, throwing dots in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Like I know all the conversation about Herbert and him being a choke artist and him not playing as well last week. That goes out the window against the Chiefs. He plays his absolute best every time they play the Chiefs. Now, luckily, they lose all but one of those games since he's been in the league. But like, it's always a show, and I don't know about you, but that's what I'm expecting this week.
Yeah, division games, as we have seen, just go back to last week, are just weird. The Broncos are awful, and we could not break away, could not get any rhythm going. 18-9, nothing exciting there. The Broncos, I mean, the Chargers, much more high-powered offense. Defense still has a lot of good names on there, but again, these games, they just always go so weird. It's always down to the wire, fourth quarter, a key turnover, and so far most of the time Herbert's made that mistake. Everyone remembers that pick six last year that basically gave us the game when it should have been the Chargers.
Right.
Had Gerald Everett not just given up on the play.
Just tapped his helmet and got a
Yeah.
sub.
Something. But yeah, these are weird games, and I don't think you would expect anything less. I do think this is one where I think you're going to see both offenses press the pedal a little bit more this week and dive into some further play calling and just get more creative. We haven't seen it that much with the Chiefs yet outside the Bears game, so I think this is when we will see it because we know Herbert can go toe to toe, and he can make every single throw Mahomes can make. He's got a high quality group of weapons, even without Mike Williams. Yeah, it's gonna be a weird one that always comes down to the wire in the fourth quarter, and I'm sure we'll be sitting here on edge throughout the whole second half saying that.
Right, and it's one of those things too. The thing that worries me, like as far as a narrative standpoint, the Chargers know their backs are against the wall. Like Staley's on the hot seat. Herbert's finally starting to feel the heat a little bit. So I think that's always dangerous, especially coming in a place to where you don't feel comfortable in Arrowhead. But I think outside of maybe like Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert's looked as comfortable in that build and in that stadium as anyone that comes in. Brady and Burrow are the only two in recent memory that come to mind. So
Herbert's just so good. Like he's good and keeps his composure under pressure most of the time.
So that does concern me. Also, I think the number one thing that actually scares me is actually on the other side of the ball, because it's been a conversation about the two new tackles with the Chiefs, and like I know the sack numbers aren't there, but a lot of that's credit to Mahomes because there are pressures being had, and this defensive line with Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, and their D tackle. I'm gonna just call him Thule T. That's what we decided. That's what Keegan and I decided before recording, that we weren't even going to attempt his last name, but he's been getting a lot of pressures from the defensive tackle position. That those three can wreak havoc, and if Donovan Smith and they aren't on their A game, Juwan Taylor and them aren't on their A game, it's gonna be Mahomes is gonna have a long day back there. Do you think what's your expectation on if the O-line is going to be able to hold up or not?
I think I might be wrong, but I don't think last year we saw Khalil Mack and Bosa at the same
Mm-mm.
time. I think it was Mack was in and Bosa was out. So I mean, both of them are healthy and playing. That's a pretty scary edge rush there. And what makes it even scarier is the fact that Thule has been solid up the middle. I'd like to think the Chiefs line is going to hold up just fine. I think in general, in years past, we've played the Chargers pass rush fairly well. I think Bosa's one you can irritate him, you can frustrate him, add a little extra chip block there, and I think if you get physical with him from the start and push him around and he's running around, I think he gets kind of frustrated. Khalil Mack though, man, that guy's he's scary. He's a monster. I mean, him and Von Miller over the years, back when Mack was with the Raiders and he had Miller with the Broncos, he was like, man, can we just catch a break in a divisional game without a top high end pass rush? But yeah, that duo I think is going to be obviously the big thing to watch for. Outside of that, the Chargers defense doesn't really scare you anymore. They trade away the guy they gave a bunch of money to in J.C. Jackson, even though he was playing bad. Derwin James, the Kelsey stopper, has yet to stop and has yet to really play a full game.
Yeah.
But yeah, that defensive line, I think when you look at how the offensive line needs to play, I think we do need to go to our strengths, and that is the interior line. Can we get some draw plays up the middle, something to redirect to where Mahomes doesn't have to flutter outside? But if he does have to, I think he's athletic. I mean, he's shown it. He's more than athletic enough to escape a Bosa sack. But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if we see one or two still.
Oh yeah, I think it'd be crazy not to expect a sack or two in this game. Just to put it into context, so the league average on 7% of dropbacks, the quarterback gets sacked, which actually seems a little high. But when Thule, Mack, and Bosa are all on the field together, they get a sack 26% of the time of
Wow,
dropbacks.
it's like
So
almost
I think
once every three
that
plays.
number's a little skewed because I think all three played in the 6-sack Khalil Mack game.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's a little skewed, but like it still looks like it's. I mean, the impression that these guys can get out to the quarterback is very real. And so, hey, again, I'm going to keep going to my favorite word this podcast. The jet sweep motion, at the very least, is going to be important because it's going to at least keep those guys home just for half a second. I don't think they're going to be giving it a lot. I mean, they may give it once or twice, but like you're going to see, I think you're going to see a lot of that motion across the entire formation just so those DNs don't get the get off. Both of them aren't getting a great get off, especially on passing downs or like second and 6 or something like that.
I guess
Also,
if you were just to go real quick in the line, if you were the Chargers, which tackle would you target more than the other?
I think so. Here's the thing: I don't think it necessarily matters because I think Khalil Mack feels better on the left side of the line against
Smith.
Donovan Smith, and that Bosa feels better on the right side of the line against Juwan Taylor. So I don't know if it necessarily matters. They got two dogs that are comfortable on either side, and I think they're just going to, especially on passing downs, pin their ears back, which may make Pacheco, the screen game and the jet sweep motion all very important. Good thing Andy loves all of those, but sometimes he gets away from one of them, the run game. And if he does that, like if he gets away from it, because the first couple possessions, it's like 2 yards per carry, and they're having to throw it or they're start throwing every down, I think that could pose some issue because then as more and more pass, the more and more of those guys are just going to keep pinning their ears back. And I don't need Mahomes running for his life all day.
This does make you feel like a game though where Mahomes could get, maybe 40 rushing yards.
Oh,
So
take the
I
over
know,
on rushing yards.
yeah, I
Why
know
not?
we have we'll get into that in the end about prop bets and whatnot, but he's going to be running.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be running. So that's my biggest concern. I know that you had a concern as well on the Chargers offensive side, and I know I've got this label as biggest X factors, and I think I know where you're going with yours. Who you got?
Yeah, I know Mike Williams is out, and I think that's huge for the defensive backs. Mike Williams has torched us the last several
Mm-hmm.
games. He's a big physical receiver. We just never match up well with him. So him being out is huge. Joshua Palmer's been solid for them at wide receiver 2 role since then. I guess at this point it's been Quentin Johnson. He hasn't really done anything. But getting Austin Eckler back and healthy is huge for their offense. That's a whole nother dynamic. You have to defend them like a receiver and you have to defend them like a running back. And I think this year, the Chiefs, we really haven't seen that much of a test against a true receiving running back.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little bit with Etienne and the Jaguars. I mean, even the Lions didn't do a whole lot with Gibbs in that role. So I think this will be a big test. Eckler's always torched us as well out of the backfield. I think he's going to have a big game, but I'm interested, I guess. I wouldn't say excited, interested to see how we handle the linebacker rotation against him. Is it a lot of Drew Tranquil? Are they going to go more speed with Willie Gay? Gay's been burned by him in the past because he can't tackle him, but he's got the speed. Do we see one of the safeties come up and maybe they play Brian Cook around the line? But that's the X factor I'm really looking at, is how do they use Austin Eckler? We know Keenan Allen's going to do what he does unless he gets injured, which could happen. It is Keenan Allen that we're talking about, but I think he's going to do what he does there. I think for me, it's really about, I don't care if Keenan Allen has 10 catches, 130 yards. If we can contain Austin Eckler to, 2 to 4 catches under 50 yards and hold him to under 30 rushing yards, 80 yards total on the ground, that's a huge win for me.
Yeah, I think he's definitely the game breaker as well. Not to be, unoriginal, but we already saw what these defensive backs did against Justin Jefferson. They've held these guys in check. And so I think Keenan's going to get his just because he's such a good route runner. And, that's how these games tend to work. But again, if he goes off and has, like you said, and maybe scores, like, okay, cool. But if they're continuing drives regularly because they're able to, on 3rd and 8, dump it off to Eckler and he's able to keep the drive alive after we got pressure or whatnot, like that's going to be the issue. So I'm not worried about him in the run game.
Especially if he's averaging 3 or 4 yards a carry too, and they're getting to 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5, 3rd and short, and they're just keep slowly, methodically moving down the field and keeping our offense off the field. I think that'd be the other concern I'd have there.
No, for sure. It's going to be interesting to see, especially because he looked a little rusty after missing a couple weeks against the Cowboys game. Cowboys have a good defense too, as we know. So it'll be interesting to see having another week of health, playing a familiar foe, and to kind of see what he's able to do. But I do agree with you. No Mike Williams, who always seems to make 2 or 3 big plays down the field a game, being out. My fantasy team didn't like it, but him being out definitely helps the Chiefs in this regard. Any other storyline or any other guys that you're kind of looking at and maybe kind of wondering how those matchups are going to work out?
Yeah, I do think defensively, the defense has been solid, as we've talked in multiple episodes now. They've held every team under 21 points. The Chargers are clearly a team that can go over that. But the Chiefs have been solid. They haven't really been over penalized. They've been sound in their assignments. They've been sure tackled this year. Keenan Allen has had a very good year. So I am curious to see what that looks like. Are they going to play man coverage? Is it going to be all Snead? Is it all McDuffie? Personally, I think I like McDuffie, even though he's a little bit smaller. I think he's got a little bit more athleticism. I'd like to see Snead just follow Josh Palmer all day and just basically shut down one whole target of the field. And then see, can McDuffie hold up again against another top corner? So I think that's the matchup I'm watching. I'm sure we'll see a lot of Mike Edwards shadowing that side of the field. He's been solid against every team's top receiver. But yeah, I think for me, I'm more watching what can the defense continue to do what it's been doing and show that this is a legit top 5 defense.
Yeah, and I'm going to piggyback on that with the defense because I think it also needs to go with the pressure because the Chargers have been very good at protecting Herbert. I know Micah Parsons made a big play there at the end, kind of the last image on Monday night, but I think they're at 10 sacks or 9 sacks against through 5 games because they did have the early bye, which is the tied for I think 28th in the NFL. Some of the other teams have had that bye, but still they've done a fairly good job of protecting him. And so these are the kind of games to where, Chris Jones. I need George Karlaftis to finish plays. I need him to finish plays because he's seeing. I
He's
think
right
he's
there.
right. He's seeing it well, and that's what I really need to see in year two. Like he's clearly taken a stepwise and just understanding what offenses are trying to do, how to beat guys like that. That's all great and dandy from just a watching standpoint. But I need to start showing up in the stat sheet, damn it. Like, start finishing plays, start making impact plays and forcing fumbles or getting sacks or whatever the case may be. This is going to be a real test, so it's hard to say I expect him to when he's going against a fairly good offensive line and a quarterback that does have a quick release and gets the ball out on those short routes to Eckler and Allen. But I need this defensive line to really show that, hey, we're for real. It's not just because we were playing Kirk Cousins, not just because we were playing, the Jets. We can get after these real time, big time quarterbacks and make plays, and so that's where
And I
that's what
think
I'll
where
do.
you need to look then is, the Chargers don't have their center in Corey Linsley. So they've got a shift of the line a little bit there. The right side's a little weaker than the left side. Rashawn Slater's been incredible.
Yeah,
So I'm looking at this as what pressure can we get up the middle, whether it's um,
Noddy and
just defensive tackle, or are we getting scheduled blitzes up the middle? I think with Herbert, obviously he thrives when he's got time. I think if you can, to me, he's one of those, if you push him outside the pocket, he looks a little more uncomfortable. Whereas a lot of quarterbacks, like Mahomes, loves to get outside the pocket and make magic. I think Herbert's one that if you come to the outside and he steps up in the middle, he makes that big throw. So I'm interested to see what kind of design blitzes and pressure will we get up the middle, quick pressure, not the delayed loop around blitz, but what quick pressure up the middle can we get to force, even if he has to dump the ball off real quick, make him uncomfortable up the middle, head on. So I think again, Chris Jones, Derek Nottie, Turk Wharton, big time matchup here.
We haven't even mentioned 26 minutes into this, Amenahu's making his debut. He's back.
Yeah.
So there's your answer up the middle.
And he can play up the middle too. He's that versatile inside outside guy.
I think that's where you're going to see a lot of him. Personally, I think that's where he's going to be mostly because I think Chris Jones is going to try to go outside, and then they like what they've got in Dana and Karlaftis, that on passing downs, I wouldn't be surprised if those are the four linemen you see on the field. Because Dana can, if Jones wants to go on the outside, Dana has no issue sliding into the D tackle spot. We've seen it before.
Yeah.
So
he's got the size to get in there and fight.
Yeah, especially on 3rd and 7 and longer. Now, I don't know if I want Dana in there on 3rd and 3 where the risk of a handoff is, but if it's a passing down and Chris Jones wants to take on one of the tackles, I have no issue with Dana moving in next to Amenahue and George Karlaftis. And I'm excited for Amenahue because you look at what he did in San Francisco and the numbers may not jump at you. But he's one of those guys that just looks like a physical freak. He got a lot of pressures last year. He kind of had a case of the Karlaftis syndrome this year where he was getting pressures but not getting sacks, being the second guy behind Bosa. So again, he's in the same situation. He's the secondary guy. He's the guy that people aren't necessarily circling in the weeks, and he's healthy. So let's see what he's got. What he's got.
I know you and CJ talked about it last episode about how good the D line's been without Amenahue. So adding him back in is just a whole nother level to mix in. And I'm sure it looks like we're going to be adding Frank Clark too. And we don't have to get into that right now. I don't know how much he'll play in regular season, but adding Amenahue in there, that's just another guy to take pressure off of Chris Jones. And if you can get both of them going at the same time, all of your pressure's going to that side to slow them down. Well, here comes George Karlaftis. And I think I even said this with you guys at the beginning of the year. Once we get Amenahue going, I think that's when we'll see Karlaftis rip off a string of 4 or 5 sacks in a row, in 4 or 5 games and sneak in there because all that attention is going to go to Chris Jones and Amenahue. So, I think that's what I'm excited about with him back is there's just so much rotation Spags can do on this line now. And they can move guys inside and out. They can try different things, try pressure from different angles. Maybe they won't have to do so many of the staged blitzes and bring a guy on the line, even though we're so effective at it. But Amenahue, it just adds a whole nother dynamic of flexibility to where, like the last time we tried to play Chris Jones on the outside, it failed miserably because we didn't have the guys to fill in around him. And now Amenahue, I don't know how much he's going to play first game back, but as he gets going and gets comfortable, that's just going to give Chris Jones even more opportunity to continue doing what he does best.
No, for sure. I'm excited for his debut just to see if Chiefs have done a pretty good job at hyping him up, even though he was suspended for 6 games when the initial signing came and everyone was kind of like, who? Like, who's this guy? I think the Chiefs did a very
He
good
was
job.
one. I don't know how many Chiefs fans really paid attention this last year. We were on the verge of trading for him with the 49ers, but I think it was the Dolphins.
When they got Bradley. No, that's 2 years ago.
No,
No.
he Omenihu was either about to get traded or the Chiefs were in talks with the 49ers and couldn't agree on compensation for it. But he was he's been a target for Spags for like 2 or 3 seasons now, and finally he gets his opportunity to see him on the field.
And we've seen when Spags gets his guys, it turns into the defense that it's been right now. And so, hey, I'm all for it. Excited to see it.
It's really nice to like. I'd imagine for Andy, this is probably the first time in his tenure here where he's really been able to trust a coordinator completely and not have to worry about anything. Like just hands off. Yep, Spags, do your thing. I'll just sit here with Pat and figure out why we're struggling to get the ball down the field.
It's just crazy how that kind of stuff works too, because like Spags is kind of, even though he won Super Bowls and has been known as a good defensive coordinator, he was like kind of outcasted there for a few years. He was the head coach? Did he get the for the Rams there for a second? Did he take over?
I thought it was the Giants.
Was it the Giants? I know he was the D coordinator on those teams.
I think he also got. Yeah, I'll look it up. I
Yeah,
think he was also.
Regardless
maybe
of what
it was the
happened,
Rams.
he got outcasted quickly, and it was like he was out of the league. It felt like for a year or two, and then Andy just kind of, after getting rid of Sutton, just kind of picks him up in 3 Super Bowl appearances and 2 Super Bowl rings later.
It was the Rams, yeah, 2009, 2011.
Yeah, it's just kind of
the
like
Sam Bradford years.
Yeah, he got judged for that. Like, come on, you can't have a defensive minded head coach and Sam Bradford as your quarterback and think that's gonna go well for you. But either way, it's happy to have him on our team, and excited to see his defense at full strength. Nick's still the good. Like this is full strength defense. Knock on wood. Like we've got everyone they want out there. So Justin Herbert and the Chargers are in for a treat. But before we get to our score predictions, how we see this one playing out, let's get to our bets. I know that's CJ's favorite segment. He's not here, so he did give me a couple. He was like, "All right, Chris, you gotta relay to the people what we want." So his favorite, he likes George Karlaftis and Chris Jones to get a sack, not one or the other. He likes both to take Justin Herbert to the ground. Which again, I think, especially with the good point Keegan brought up with Lindsey being out, and even though the line has played well, they looked shaky last week against Denver. I like that bet a lot. Agree with him there. And then his other one was Jed McKinnon right now on FanDuel, or at least when he sent me this, his over under for receiving yards was 16.5. That seems like you got to smash the over on that, especially if the pass rushers are coming and the screen game's relevant. Like, feels like Jet's going to get at least a couple catches.
Hopefully. He still hasn't gotten a lot of run time back there or targets. It's just been protection.
Right. So, well, they've kind of needed it a little bit with sometimes, the tackles have been fine. They haven't been great, but they've been fine. So you need a little help there. But I'm kind of with CJ on both those. I like both those picks because I think you're going to have to throw them a couple. You're going to have to get the ball out fast with the pass rushers this Chargers defense has.
Yeah, I was trying to look at FanDuel doesn't have all the prop bets up just yet. Eckler doesn't have a receiving bet on there, but I think if you can get Eckler anywhere over 3.5 receptions, I definitely like the over on that. Because if the pass rush is getting to Herbert, he's going to be able to check down to Eckler, and they're going to make him a huge part of their offense. So I really like that one. I'm kind of wishy-washy on Keenan Allen. His total receptions are 6.5. Like, if you look at the season, smash the over. But what have Snead and McDuffie done all season?
Right.
They've held guys in check. So I don't know about that one. I think Herbert going for his passing prop is pretty solid. It's 261. 261.5 is the over-under. The one I'm tempted to – you go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask if Everett was on there, just because he's had last year.
Everett, no, at least on FanDuel, yeah, his over is 25.5.
I kind of like that over. just because seems to make plays against the Chiefs. I know he hasn't had a great start to his season, but just kind of we're going off track record.
Yeah. Oh, and
Regardless of how the defense
Eckler's is 33.5. I like the over there.
yeah.
On the Chiefs side, Rashee Rice has been slowly getting more worked in. Right now, you can get him plus 240 for anytime touchdown. I think
Okay.
that's not bad there. And then it's a kind of sneaky one. I've been doing this, and it hasn't worked that often, of course. But Noah Gray's been finding himself getting some targets in the red zone and down the field. He's plus 650 for an anytime touchdown. I don't mind that. And I am curious if they were to put a Mecole Hardman prop bet anytime touchdown. If you see it, take it.
Yeah.
Because if he's active, they're going to find a way to get him the ball in the red zone for sure.
Just throw $5 on it.
The one I know that we were talking about this off air, the one I'm kind of tempted to go off of as far as the full game is taking the under on the points. 47.5. That's a pretty low scoring NFL game for two high power offenses, but these teams go back and forth between 20 and 24, 27 points apiece. So that one's intriguing. I don't know if it's really one I want to throw money on yet. But the Chiefs defense has held every team under 21. So if that's the case and the offense still continues to do enough to get by, then yeah, you're looking at hitting the under there.
That's a pop your bubble here, but the last the last 6 matchups have all hit the over on that. So, at least on that 48.5. I know these teams are a little bit different, but
so should I zag when everybody else is zigging?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
It is a prime time game, 3 o'clock window.
Yeah.
But the offense just hasn't exploded yet.
Really. No, it hasn't. It hasn't. And I don't know if this is. I mean, a division opponent with you can say whatever you want about Staley. He's still a defensive head coach and has his moments, and it's going against the team he's familiar with. It's one of those. I think I'd stay away from the over under personally for this game, just because they are. It's like
there's really not enough. There's not enough value there. It's
no.
I think it's sure. minus 105, minus 115 for the over, minus 105 on the under. So not really much value there. Chiefs are 5.5 point favorites. I mean, if history does what it's been doing, I think you can take the Chargers to cover that.
Yeah.
This is always coming down to a field goal.
It's 3 points, 3 points, 6 points, 6 points. The game Mahomes didn't play because we had it locked up, and 3 points. So of the last 5 games, Mahomes and Herbert have both played. The max was 6.
Well, so if you parlay the Chiefs money line and the Chargers to cover, it's plus 393 on FanDuel. So that's some good value there.
There you go. I think that might be
my pick of the week.
I think that's the move. Yeah. I think that's the move for sure. Because that's how these games work out. The Chargers keep it close, and
then Brandon Staley chokes late.
Yeah, it does something. Although oddly enough, I feel like the one time that the Chiefs did lose to Herbert and Staley was the game that made Staley get his reputation as a go, and then he's completely gone away from that. The last couple of years since, but I don't know, but we've been talking about it enough, getting kind of beaten around the bush. What's our actual score predictions? What do you got as the final for this game?
Earlier I was feeling 24-21. Now I want to say 27-24 Chiefs, but Chargers go up towards the end of the fourth quarter. Mahomes does what he does, and we score going away.
Okay. I always take the over. It feels like as far as the points. Last week I didn't. It finally worked out for me. I'm going back to my old ways. I'm going back to just expecting points. Give me 31-27. Barn burner, a lot of points, a lot of up and down. It goes against everything that the Chiefs have shown. No one scored over 20, and they've only scored over 30 once. Throw it out the window. I want offense on Sunday. I think this is more of what I want than what I expect kind of pick, but I'm going 31-27 Chiefs.
I know you guys talked about this. It was either last episode or the last preview one, that it's funny how Chiefs fans you kind of feel like Chiefs fans as a whole, would you be happier if the Chiefs won 44-37 than if the Chiefs won 20-17?
Yeah.
And it was an all defensive show, because we're just so used to seeing Mahomes gun it. Like, to me, I'll take the 24-21 game, because that means our defense can shut anybody down.
I'll take a 2-0 win, man. If
A win is a win.
Exactly. It's just more fun, as everyone knows, to sit on the couch rooting for the offense. And okay, no one cares about my fantasy team, but I got Herbert in my dynasty league. I love seeing that man put up points. So I need the points, and I need the Chiefs to win. Although if the Chiefs win 45-0 and Herbert throws 4 picks, I'm not going to be mad about it. So, that's where we're at.
Yeah, you always have to take your rooting interest team over your fantasy team.
1
no matter how much money's involved. That's just how it works.
Exactly. If you're doing it otherwise, then you got your priorities wrong. But any other thoughts before we get out of here, Keegan?
I think the one thing, I know we haven't mentioned it, but I was just looking at the standings. The Las Vegas Raiders are second in the division at 3-3. Who would have guessed? Without a quarterback.
I don't think that's going to last. That's why this game feels. The Chargers go to 2-4, and the Chiefs move to 6-1 with a game against the Broncos next week.
Oh, yeah, division's over.
Feels like the division's locked up.
Which that does make me nervous, because I do think the Chargers, like you said, the back's against the wall.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to come out with their hair on fire. This is a must win game for them, so they're going to be fully prepared.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I mean, this shouldn't be one that people are surprised is close and competitive, because it always is, and that's what I fully expect. So. All right. Well, Keegan, also, right before we wrap this up, where can the good people find you, and any other things that you may got going on right now?
Yep. You guys can follow me. I don't tweet a whole lot from my own account now. I try to do it mostly on the podcast, but you can hit me up on Twitter at Keeganator_11. Of course, you can find all of our other content and podcasts with KC Sports Authority right here on the YouTube channel. If you're watching, hit that subscribe button. But you can follow Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at KCSA Pod. We're building up the amount of content we're pushing out, and this is just one area of that content in the Chiefs content. So that's where you can find me. If you want to hit up JB as well, he loves to tweet during the games at Call Me John Bruno. He's always active during games. But yeah, you can find both of us on the KCSA podcast, which we're also on right now.
There you go. And they do a lot of good work with the KU stuff. Had a nice KU mid-season episode come out earlier this week that I was lucky enough to join, and these guys know their stuff, man. It's a lot of fun to listen to, especially if you're a Jayhawk fan. But for me, you can follow me, like, if you're watching this on YouTube, right there on the screen, 10penny88. I am still tweeting baseball. I gotta apologize to you football fans out there that couldn't care less, but that's kind of my go-to. Also, make sure to check out the Aftermath podcasts, where we put all our videos. CJ, my normal co-host, will put up some videos and some. He'll normally retweet from his own, which is at CJEEZY81. He's always got a lot of good stuff on there. He's always got spaces going and just a lot of good. If you're obsessed with Chiefs content and always want to hear it, go to CJ's page, and you will be able to find someone somewhere having Chiefs conversation to fill your day. So. But I think that's going to do it for us this week. Thank you, Keegan, for joining us again. Had a lot of fun, but that's going to do it, and we will talk to you next time.
Hey, and to steal TJ's line, go Chiefs!
Hey, what's good, y'all? It's your boy JD6 here with my man. Shout out to KC Sports Authority. Make sure y'all go check that podcast out, man.
You heard the man.